Hey, what's up guys? Today I'm doing my September wrap-up, talking about all of the books I read in September. I read fewer books than usual in September. I feel like I also said that for August, but I've just been struggling to read as much recently with my new job, and also just some of the books I've been choosing just haven't been the most engaging. I don't know, but I started a good reading month, so I'm excited to talk about the books I did read with you. It's just a little bit less than normal, but to be honest, it's not really a bad thing. If you enjoy this video, please leave a like and please subscribe. Also, I decorated for Halloween. I'll have a full Halloween decoration tour on my vlog coming up next Wednesday. I am doing weekly vlogs for Trick or Treat-a-thon. Today is the 1st of October, so today is the first day of Trick or Treat-a-thon. If you're not taking part, you should. It's never too late. All the information will be in the description. But yeah, I am just going to jump into the wrap-up now. So the first two books I'm going to talk about is The Cauldron of Life and The Stone of Destiny by Caroline Logan. These are the first two books in the Four Treasures series, and the third book comes out on the 9th of October, and I already have my copy, which was so nice of the publisher to send it to me early. I plan on actually starting it today, and I will be making a video all about why I love this series after I have read it. But a little short snippet teaser of that video. Basically, this is a YA fantasy series, and it is Scottish inspired. It has the found family trope, which I absolutely love. I love the character dynamics within these books, and it also features, different Scottish mythological creatures that I had never even really heard of. So it's really interesting to meet these really unique creatures, which I've never seen in any other fantasy book, and research them myself and find out the real life stuff about them, where the mythology comes from, and then how Caroline Logan has put her spin on it. And it also features, fae, seelie and unseelie fae, which if you are a fan of, the Cruel Prince or the Shadowhunter books, that type of stuff, it has features reminiscent of them. But I actually love Caroline Logan's fae folk the most, I think. I don't know, there's just something really evil about most of them, and I just love it. So if you are interested in any of these things, I highly recommend you check out that book. But I will definitely be making a video on it as a whole, like the series, after I finish the third book. The next book I'm going to talk about is Elvis and Me by Priscilla Presley. I am a huge Elvis fan, especially recently. I just went through such a big Elvis phase. I'm moving out of it a little bit now, but for a couple of weeks I was obsessed with Elvis, and I have loved him for ages and I still do. One of my favourite songs of all time is If I Can Dream by Elvis. I actually plan on getting a tattoo of that, probably. We'll see. But yeah, Priscilla Presley is his ex-wife. She was the only woman that was ever married to Elvis, and she wrote this book all about their time together, how they met, and all through their marriage up to their divorce, and then up to his death. So it covers a large span of her life and then also Elvis's life. And it's hard to talk about this book by just reviewing the book itself, because it does feel like you want to talk about everything Elvis has done and his characterization within the book. But the book itself is very simply written. It's quite straight to the point. It doesn't mess around with metaphors, alliteration, anything like that. It is just, a description of events, but it is really captivating, and I could not put it down. I just wanted to read and read and read. I think I read it in a day and a half, maybe. It's really interesting, especially, if you're an Elvis fan, obviously, you get such a interesting insight into who he is, because, who knows him better than Priscilla Presley? But Elvis does not come across as a great person in this book. They met when she was 14 and he was 28, I believe. And then even, putting that a little bit to the side, their actual relationship, it's, there's physical abuse, verbal abuse. It's extremely controlling. He chooses what she wears, her makeup, who her friends are, what she does every day, where she goes. He controls everything about her life, basically. He gives her drugs when she's still, I think she was 16 the time that he gives her drugs, and she overdoses and doesn't wake up for 2 days. There's all sorts of stuff that, just does not paint Elvis in a good light. So as a fan, it's very interesting to read that stuff. And, there's a lot of debate. If you go on Goodreads especially and look at the reviews for this book, a lot of people think that she's making stuff up, or she's twisting stories, or she is, has Stockholm syndrome, which I honestly thought that she was really brutally honest about how toxic the relationship was. But then other people in the reviews seem to be saying oh, she's still obviously in love with him and she wrote this, she puts rose-coloured glasses on for everything, and I was like shocked to read that because I thought that, you know, he did not come across well at all. And obviously, you know, he has drug issues, a lot of family issues, and, you know, he was a very troubled person in general. He was like dirt poor, like the poorest of the poor when he was younger and stuff, but it doesn't excuse, you know, the way that he treats her and then also the people around him. He controls everyone, like with money basically, because he is Elvis Presley. And, you know, it's hard to review the book without going into all of this stuff. But yeah, it was a really interesting read. And, you know, if you're not an Elvis fan, obviously I don't think you really care, but if you are, it's definitely worth reading. My Sylvia Plath book for September was Crossing the Water. This is another collection of poems that did not make the cut for Ariel, but written around the same time. And I personally felt that this was the weakest of the collections I've read so far. I have read Ariel and Winter Trees and then Crossing the Water now. And I think that the issue with Crossing the Water for me was just that it lacks an overarching theme that I could really pick up on. Ariel deals with a lot of, you know, depression and dark thoughts and suicide and stuff like that. And Winter Trees deals a lot with motherhood and raising children and what it means to be a woman and, you know, a lot of feminist issues as well. And then Crossing the Water just didn't really have like an overarching theme that I could really pick up on. There was one poem I really liked called In Plaster, and it dealt with, you know, like depersonalization and dissociation, and it was really interesting. I really liked that one, but that was the only one that really stood out to me throughout the entire collection, which was a little bit of a letdown. But, you know, still love Sylvia. Obviously this is just like some of her weaker ones, I think, and I'm excited to, you know, continue on with my Sylvia Plath journey. An audiobook I read recently, or listened to, was Fantastic Land by Mike Bokoven. I think that's how you say his surname. This is a horror story about a large group of young adults who are trapped in this theme park called Fantastic Land when a huge hurricane, tsunami, I can't remember, hits, and they're basically trapped in this amusement park, theme park for, I think, like 2 months or something like that. And they all get extremely violent. They split off into gangs and they end up fighting to survive, and also just fighting each other, and a lot of gory stuff happens, a lot of crazy stuff happens, and I did really enjoy it. It is written in the form of interviews, and I think that the audiobook narrators done an amazing job. I swear, I think there's only 2 of them, but they made every single character, and there was a lot of characters, sound completely different. Like just the accents and the tone of voice and the dialect and stuff that they used, like every single character sounded individual and unique, and I loved it. I think that if you were going to read this, definitely listen to the audiobook. Like the way that they make every character unique was just amazing. Actually, like I genuinely was amazed. And it is written in the form of interviews, but the author note at the start is like the fictional author of the interviews, who is like a reporter type person. He has like removed all of his questions and like basically condensed all of the interviews into these people just telling their stories. So it's like interviews, but not really interviews. It's just like a lot of different collections of stories that make up this overall huge narrative. And I just thought it was so clever. I loved it. It was a little bit ridiculous at times, some of the stuff that happened. And the fact that all these young adults would turn to such extreme violence so quickly, you know, within like 2 days was a little bit silly. But, you know, if you can just put that to the back of your mind, I think that this was such a fun read, and I would definitely recommend this one for October. My most surprising book of the month was On the Road by Jack Kerouac. This is an American classic about these young men travelling back and forth across America on road trips and basically doing nothing. And I honestly expected to hate this. I actually went into it thinking this is probably going to be a DNF, and somehow I actually loved it, and I don't understand why, because it has everything that I normally hate. Like, there's no real plot, there's no real character development, the characters don't go anywhere. It's just like meandering across America, like back and forth, like getting up to some crazy little situations and stuff, but like nothing of substance actually happens. And it's so interesting because I actually still loved it. Like, there's just this charm to it that is so hard to put into words unless you read it. I think that it's just the way that Jack Kerouac really brings out Americana and nostalgia and makes you feel like you're there, you know, in this like freedom and this wilderness, like on the road with these crazy boys doing drugs and all sorts of stuff that they shouldn't be doing, committing crimes, and just like living wild and free. And it's so, it just has a charm to it. Like, that's just the only way I can really describe it. Like, nothing happens, but it's so interesting anyway. And I will say it took me a lot longer to read than I expected because nothing really happens, so it's hard to like stay invested for a long period of time. But every time I picked it up, I was like really enjoying it, but it's just then I put it down and I'd be like, okay, I need a little break now because nothing's happening. But yeah, it's such an interesting book, and if you've ever been interested in it, definitely check it out, because it was one that I was really interested in for a long time, but I just kept putting off because I was like, I probably won't like it. Like I tried Maggie Cassidy, or I read Maggie Cassidy by him before, and I didn't like that one, so I thought, I don't know if I'll like this, but I really do understand why it's an American classic, because it just has this like Americana, nostalgic 1950s charm to it that is indescribable. Next, I'm going to talk about Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is about a group of Southern housewives in the 80s, I believe, who have a book club, and then this new man moves into the neighbourhood, James Harris, and at first they are all friends with him, but then the main housewife that we are following, our main character, Patricia, starts to get really suspicious about him and what he's been doing, and some strange goings on in the neighbourhood, and things go on from there. I absolutely loved this. I thought the housewife characters were all so dynamic and unique and interesting, and I just love following them. I listened to this on audiobook, I don't know if I said that, and the narrator just done such a good job of like these like southern middle class voices. I don't know, I just really loved it. And I loved as well how, you know, some of their actions were really frustrating at times, but when you think about who they are, what their lives are, you know, where they've been raised, like the values that they've been installed in them at the time period, like it does make sense. And you know, they have falling outs, I don't need to say that, but they all come together to defend their neighbourhood and their children, and I just absolutely loved the theme of friendship in this book as well. You know, even when some of the women are really not trusting Patricia anymore and they think that she's going crazy, there's other ones that come through and just like, they're like, okay, I don't even know if I fully believe you, but you're my friend, I'm here for you, and I just loved that. And what I also loved as well was James Harris, who is the neighbour that they think is a vampire. When he is like explaining stuff and, you know, giving his alibis and things, I fully at times was like, okay, maybe Patricia is wrong, like maybe he is innocent, and just the way that it was all written was so clever and I really loved it. So I would highly recommend it. The tone just gets progressively darker and darker and darker up until the end, and it's just like, then it's like total horror, gory bloodfest, and I just think it was so well written, and I would highly, highly recommend it. And then, because I loved that so much, I went on Audible and I seen that My Best Friend's Exorcist, or Exorcism, I can't remember, is available on the Audible Plus thing, which I don't understand how authors making money off that Audible Plus, where it's like just free audiobooks, like unlimited free audiobooks. But anyway, I got it off that, and I absolutely love this one as well. This one is about these two girls, well, there's four girls, but it's like main two, who are best friends, and they are away at one of the other friends' houses, which is kind of secluded, and they go out in the woods at night and they go skinny dipping, and then one of them gets lost, and then when she comes back, there's just something wrong with her. Her actions, the way that she's speaking, the things that she's doing, the way she's treating people is just all wrong. And the main character slowly starts to think that her best friend is possessed, and the story goes on from there. And again, pretty much similar to the last book, I just loved like the theme of friendship and the lengths that our main character would go to save her friend from this demon, which we don't really know if it's actually there. It's pretty much kind of similar to Southern Book Club, where Patricia is, you know, like, okay, pretty sure that he's a vampire, but then there's always this doubt, like, what if he's not? And again, in this one, it's like, what if she's not actually possessed by a demon? What if there's just like some other trauma that happened in the woods, if you know what I'm hinting at? I should also say, I forgot to say for Southern Book Club, both of these contain sexual violence, or this one is more like hints of and discussion of, but Southern Book Club's guide, there is some semi-graphic descriptions of sexual violence. So if you can't read that, you should be aware that that is definitely in Southern Book Club. Best Friend's Exorcism is just like talked about, but yeah, anyway, where was I? I forgot where I was. I just loved it, pretty much. I loved, again, the tone. It get darker and darker. It started off quite humorous at times, but slowly it just became like total madness, and I thought it was, again, executed so well, and I loved it, and I really want to read like everything Grady Hendrix has ever written now, because I was so impressed by both these books. So that was my September wrap up. If you read any of those books, I would love to hear about them, especially the Grady Hendrix ones. I was so blown away by them. I can't believe I put off reading him for so long. And I definitely 100% need to read Horror Store like right now. And I know he has some other books as well. I think his most recent one is at the Final Girl Support Group. I think that one didn't get as good reviews, but so I'll leave that one to last. But yeah, I'm like such a stan right now. I just want to read everything by him. Horror Store though, I definitely, as much as I love horror audiobooks, I want to read Horror Store physically because I know that it has like really unique, you know, like images and illustrations and stuff in the physical copy. So I want to get my hands on that for sure. But yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, please subscribe, let me know any thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in my next video.